Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for Promoting the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA-USA. IPA-USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, which is comprised of 23 different countries, all focused on advocating for the child's right to play. You can find our Porch Play Chats and learn more about IPA-USA by visiting our website at IPAUSA.org. And if you click on that top right-hand corner, you can subscribe to our Facebook page, and you can be a friend on our Facebook page. And one Porch Play Chat is released every week. And these Porch Play Chats are our opportunity in the US to advocate for play by having this wide range of individuals who are just as passionate about play as we are. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm the president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Jennie Ford. Welcome, Jennie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so happy you're here. So Jennie is a teacher of 2-year-olds, so already she gets extra points at Brentwood Day School, and she's been there since October of 2000. She's been in the world of early childhood, formerly with a bachelor's degree in child care administration from Belmont University in 1994, and worked in programs prior to graduation as support staff from 1991. She's a wife and mother and has 2 daughters, along with 4 rescued dogs and 1 cat. And she's currently a graduate student at Champlain College in Vermont. So Jennie, we're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I hope my 4 dogs behave during this. You might hear some background barking.
Well, just for those of you who are on, have done the speaker series this week in India, when Sadishna was doing her recording yesterday, there was a dog barking in the background the whole time. So you know what? It is what it is.
Is what it is.
So I loved your title of your presentation today. It was, I don't want to be the line leader. And so what do you mean by that?
I mean, surely if you've been in a group of children before and you need to go from one place to another place as you line up to make sure everybody's here and we go, there's always the one that wants to be the line leader. Mm-hmm. So that begins our order of how we begin to process things in life, is how do we choose to be that? So, and in my classroom, we have 2 teachers. So of course, one of us is at the beginning of the line, one of us is at the end. We bookend, off we go. We do have to cross a little parking lot to get to our playground, which is safe, but you still have to be mindful that you're walking across. So of course, we're talking about watching, being aware of surroundings. And when I am the one in the front, I'm of course just focused on the safety and getting us there. But I love being the person in the back because I'm making sure we're getting there. But I get the luxury of looking at little heads, looking this way, looking that way, looking down, managing their space between each other. Oops, I stepped on a shoe. I mean, there's just so much that happens when you can watch what they're doing. And when I'm at the front, I'm so focused on making sure we get there safely. I don't know what's happening behind me. So I love to be the end. That's my favorite. And so, I always chant about how much I love that spot, just to help the kids who are disappointed they aren't the line leader can come hang out with me and let's take in the world as we pass by. And, my family jokes that as a teacher for so many years, it has just become my natural instinct to run to the front of any group of people, whether it's youth activities, a school field trip, my own family traveling. One time in downtown New York, we were going somewhere and I was just, somehow I managed to get to the front of my family and off I was going, and they were laughing because I had no idea where I was really going. But it felt like I had to be at the front. Like I have to safely make sure we're all together. And they stopped in the middle of Manhattan and watched me motor for a little while until I turned around and went, "What are you doing?" They said, "We're supposed to go down here." But you were so determined to be in the front that you were missing the turn, but we weren't going to let you get too lost. I was like, well, thank you. So I bring that to the classroom to say, like, as a teacher, we know we have standards, and in Tennessee, we have the Tennessee Early Learning Developmental Standards, and we have to show that what we're linking this to what we're having in our classrooms. And you can get so focused on that you forget you're the line leader, and then you need to step back and let them show you. So I think that's that kind of is what I think of when I tend to feel like I'm trying to put a little too much control in my room. I don't want to be the line leader. I want to get in the back and be the follower.
Oh, and that's such a beautiful thought. It's almost like we need to have that little sign inside our cubbies. I don't want to be the line leader. I need to be more of a facilitator, which has
Right.
kind of been this theme this week in the Porch Play Chats, that people are saying, I've realized that I'm not the way children learn all the time.
Mhm.
And so I need to be more of a facilitator and step back and observe,
Right.
because I found out I learn so much more about them if I do that versus, trying to control 25 or 30 little munchkins and have them do what I want them to do versus doing what they're interested in doing. Have you
Exactly. And
seen that?
that's the foundation of why play is the best way to learn, because, but you get so tangled into all the things you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I really spent some time thinking, how can I make this my cubby sign to remind myself that what I'm doing is valid? What I'm doing is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to look intricate to be important.
Mm-hmm.
So I've sort of rethought how I plan, in that every week I, have all the content areas of the class, and I write down in journal what every child found delight in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And from then, what can I do next week to continue that? And of course,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
perfect, right? Because what we should be doing is following children's interests.
right.
And if we just did that, their play is integrated.
Yes.
They're doing fine motor and
They are
social and
doing
emotional
all of
and cognitive and language, and they're doing all that if we just let them.
exactly. And then we can go back and reverse and say, so example, yesterday we had many pumpkins in the classroom. We've done all the things with the pumpkins. And when it was time to go outside, they didn't want to stop. I said, well, let's put them all in a basket and take them outside with us. So we loaded them in a basket, moved them outside. I have so much documentation of them handling them. They put them in a wheelbarrow. That was a gross motor to get them up the little berm where we have a slide. They rolled them down the slide. There's physics. This one went faster. This one was slower. I mean, I was just over a bag of pumpkins, a little gourds, so it was just, and so now I'll put that all in and go, this is what we learned from that. We did
Uh-huh.
do it. It's here. I can show you. So I just had to reframe myself to get, to give myself a way to do all the things that we need to do, but do it in a way that the children is most relevant for them.
Well, and I think that just demonstrates that we don't have to say, okay, this week we're going to do the math standard of sorting,
No.
right?
Right.
Instead, I can put all these, all I have to do is watch them at snack with gourd.
Yes.
They sort.
Yes. Exactly.
All the little pretzels go here and all the Cheerios go here because they have to see what it is they're eating.
Exactly. Yes.
And that cracks me up when teachers then spend, I'm going to do a small group lesson on sorting. I said, have you watched them at snack?
Right.
They do it at
They
snack.
do it. And it's more fun to sort their snack than to
Of course it is.
sit there with little colored discs and make them do a something. And you always know when they don't want to do it. I mean, it is just, it's just, there's this level of just enjoyment that you can sense when it's their idea. And that's where if I can just remind myself to watch what is actually happening,
Mhm.
I can tell you all day all the wonderful things that's happening in their lives, in their world, in their minds.
And you have evidence because you're taking observations. So you have detailed evidence of exactly what each child did. So I remember when I was teaching in the classroom, and it didn't matter, every year you have to do 3 periods of assessment every year. Well, I didn't wait till 2 weeks before that happened. I observed every day.
Exactly.
So, and I had my little post-it notes, and I might have a focus, right? I might have a purpose for that observation. Like maybe this week I'm going to take language samples of children. So for on Wednesday morning, I'm going to choose Sarah, Johnny, and Peter. And I'm just going to go listen to what they're saying. And I'm going to do a language sample and date it and put it over in their portfolio. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to do a language sample outside. And I'm going to do Emory and Mary and Joaquin, and I'm going to do them outside, and I'm just going to do. And so I did that every day. I had a purpose, but for that week, I was doing language samples, right? So, and I throw those over in their portfolio, so when it came time, I had evidence
Right.
of how their language developed over the year, because I had at least 3 samples over the year, but I had many more than that. So I think if we can just take a step back and recognize how much more you learn about a child when you observe them
Yes.
than when you're teaching them,
Right.
it sort of helps teachers recognize that, yes, there's lots of learning happening, but you're not necessarily being the teacher, right?
I agree with you. And that's where I get back to the line leader piece.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being the follower and watching, you know, is just, and picking up on the cues. And then from there, you know, going into, it just opens it up for, you know, it's things that they're choosing. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's free and unstructured. There's, you know, there's no goal, and it's, you know, a lot of pretend, and just, and through those, I mean, just, this is a time, as we know, like kindergarten in our area, at least, it's the children are coming home with stacks of things to do, and there's a lot of sitting. So I feel like we know that at our program, we want to give them just that opportunity to be able to build those skills and enjoy them and have that time, you know. And I wish.
And so the other big, I know, I wish everybody would do this instead of thinking they had to be the teacher, right? And I get it, that we want to be seen as professionals and we want to be seen that our work is worthy. But when we move away from what we know is appropriate, and we move away from play, then our work becomes less worthy, because children are not being able to develop the way they should be, right? So I just think everything that you've described to me, and I don't know if you have them in Tennessee, but we in Pennsylvania, our early learning standards, the very first section is approaches to learning. So those dispositions, right, of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that you have said here, and you know, Lillian Katz and Mary Lou, whose name I can't, Mary Lou, starts with an H, and she'll hurt me that I can't remember her name, but she wrote Enthusiastic and Engaged was her book, which was amazing. So Lillian Katz and Mary Lou all wrote about why the approaches to learning are the foundation of all future learning. And if you skip those because you're too busy teaching, then children have lost that foundation that they need for everything else. So, you know, and Bruce Perry, the neuroscientist and child psychiatrist who works with traumatized and horribly neglected children, did the learning cycle. And the learning cycle that he developed is all based on his observations of children and how neglect and trauma has interfered with that development, how he has to go back and do activities that help to rebuild what they missed. So if we could just say the role of early childhood professionals is to help children master those dispositions of learning, and they get that when they play,
I know.
our work is done.
I think that's what I was, I think you just summed up exactly what I was trying to articulate, is that this is our chance to give them that foundation before they go into a world that I don't have any control over. You know, both my children, one's 21, one is 17, when they left the program where I'm teaching and went into school, it was such a difference in seeing how I saw them losing that enthusiasm and sparkle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've worked so hard to help bring that in the afternoons. Of course, now they're old enough to manage, but you know, to help to reframe some of what they did at school, and how could we do this in a fun way, you know, and bring that play even to like after school homework time, you know, just to remind them. And my daughter, who's 17, she texted me the other day and said, "Mom, have you read David Elkin's book about play?" And I said, "Oh, well, yes, I have actually." And interesting. Why are you asking? And so in her literature writing class in high school, she was writing about how she thinks the lack of play in especially elementary and on up is really
Mhm.
setting up young adults to expect that that's the rigor in which life has to be led.
Oh
That's
my God.
just
I
like,
just want to hug your daughter right
I
now.
mean,
Yes.
how wow for me to hear, and we have not had chats about this other than she just lives with me, so I mean, just I live it out loud. But for her to see that, and that's the kind of things I feel like if we can give a good firm foundation to not only the children but the families, you have to advocate too. Where is your line? Where is your
Well,
comfort zone?
and
Where?
I, and I think the mistake we make is we think we have to get them ready for that
Yes.
when we should be getting that ready for them.
And exactly. So there's definitely a backwards, but I just work so much to, I feel like so much of my relationship with the parents I work with is to say, your child better than anyone. And let me remind you of all the resources available to support you and reach out. And from this point forward in your child's journey is you're going to be part of that, and looking into what's the best fit,
Yeah.
and so it just it just seems like us, just parents, of course, from everywhere, families come out from different perspectives, but just whatever is the right for you, just to remind you that, we can make that connection. So I feel like that's something else I feel like in the young 2-year-old world that I do is just prepare, like we are going, as your child grows,
Mhm.
just remember, to stay just kind of connected in as you can. But what you said about trauma, I think that the ability for a child to play and work out things that have happened
Mm.
in a place to
Mhm.
practice those emotions, and yeah, that's always such a powerful moment when you can tell through play that they're
Mhm.
they're working through something really important right now.
Yeah, and we have to let them do that, right? So
Emotion, exactly.
yeah, so and I think how we work through as adults, right? So adults work through traumatic experiences in a way that they may journal, they may talk about it with someone, they may sit in solitude and just try to think of other things that might have changed it,
Mhm.
right? But whatever those things are, we hope that they're healing, right? That they're helping them adjust and heal with what happened to them. But the other big piece is that sometimes we say, no, no, it's time to clean up, or no,
Right.
no, it's time to come do the next teacher structure thing,
Yes,
which is interfering with that ability for them to process and heal.
exactly. They
Yeah.
It's on their timeline. It's on their, who are we to
Mhm.
tell them when it's time to stop worrying about storms because a tornado caused damage in I mean, who are we to say when it's time for you to put that on the shelf? You're done worrying about that. So,
That's exactly right. And maybe this is my moment to try to figure it out because I feel safe here,
yes,
right? That
exactly. This is a safe place to do this, and you know, and it's right. Yeah, exactly. So that's where I think play is so healing, whether you've experienced trauma or whether it's the birth of a new child in your family. I mean, all sorts of things. My current class, we've had lots of newborns. And so to see that type of play coming through, of beginning to be gentle touching with the baby, I can just see it all working. And I'm like, oh, you're working through all of this new change. I see it,
Mhm. And it's so
It
beautiful.
is.
But again, if we were too busy teaching,
Right.
we wouldn't see that because we'd be too busy trying to control a group. And I mean, anybody who thinks they're in charge of 3-year-olds, let alone 2-year-olds,
Right.
needs to rethink that.
You are not the line leader.
Or not the line leader,
We are
as much as you would like to
with
be.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So I want to go back to thinking about other strategies that you use in the classroom. You're using observation to let children follow their own interest and their lead. What other, how do you get them interested in something that they may not have had had an experience with yet. That's my question.
And that's what I feel like I start the school year with this. We start the school year with, parent meet and greet times where I ask what sorts of ways does your child really enjoy playing at home? And when they first join the class, I want to have something familiar, something that's connecting them to what they already love. And then from there, I feel like I just cast nets. We have the knowns. I want you to have the familiar stories, the familiar ways you like to play. So this place knows you and respects you and wants you to feel at home here. But what if I cast my net and add a little something over here? And if it sits idle, then I know that's not what we're into. Then I'll cast a net over here and try something else. Just like a bag of pumpkins. I could not have known that bag of pumpkins was going to be such the interest. They were ready. They latched onto it and they extended it for hours. I mean, those are some of the most used pumpkins I've ever met. In some years you have pumpkins that sit on the shelf and they just are just there. They're optional, they're there, and they don't give them a minute's notice. But this one, and it just was like this synergistic thing where that just built to this and that just built to that. And then that's when I went, okay, I know where we're at. Here we are. We're interested in things that roll. We're interested in heavy lifting and hauling. We're interested in selling them at our ice cream shop. I mean, like they've made they like to sell me stuff all day, so we were selling pumpkins and, and that's where it was authentic. But I didn't know that was going to be that day's wonder.
Thing.
I didn't know.
And I think I love the phrase casting your net, right? Because it takes me back to sort of Reggio Emilia provocations, right? The invitations to learn, where the teacher puts something out and watches to see if there's interest. And whenever you talk about the little pumpkins, when I was doing my student teaching, I was in a preschool classroom, and Thomas was a child who was extremely auditorily sensitive. And so he would be engaging with his friends and everything would be hunky-dory. And then all of a sudden he'd hit them. and fortunately, the cooperating teacher that I was working with used to be a teacher in my preschool, right? And so we knew each other really well. So I walked in the door and I said, "What do you need from me?" She said, "I need you to figure out Thomas." I said, "Okay." So I observed Thomas. They had an observation room. I had on my headphones. I was like, what just happened? That he was playing so nicely and then wham. And so we figured out that when the classroom got too noisy, Thomas reacted. And he didn't mean, and the look on his face when he hit his friend was like, I didn't mean to do that, but he just couldn't handle it. So we did, we talked about how Thomas's ears were really sensitive and we needed to help him. And we taught Thomas that if it gets too loud, put your hands over your ears and then we'll know you need help and we'll come get you and we'll take you to a quieter spot. And so it was like 3 or 4 days later, as we said, remember, Thomas is really sensitive. So Thomas, if it gets too loud, put your hands over your ears. And it was like 3 or 4 days in when the children were putting their hands over Thomas's ears because they were afraid it was getting too loud.
They were okay. I see. Yes.
Yeah. And it was just so precious. So then to the pumpkins, I brought in, it was fall. So I brought in gourds and little baby pumpkins, big pumpkins, all sorts of stuff. And Thomas fell in love with the little baby pumpkin and he would carry it around like this all day. And if he dropped it, he would get frantic because he didn't know where he'd put it. So the children, they were just amazing children. They would say, "Thomas, here's your pumpkin. I found it over in housekeeping." And he would grab it. Oh my, they are the most caring, loving people if you give them time to be that community.
Yes, they just trust it. It's okay. You can sit. I spent such a great deal of time yesterday leaning up against my sink, just watching. They had it under control.
And there were no behavior problems. Nobody bit anybody. Nobody hit anybody. Nobody. And they do that when they're deeply
Yes.
When they're deeply engaged in something, all those behavior issues go away. So if we could say anything to the audience is follow children's lead and leave them alone.
Yes. And that
They
is hard work,
hard work.
especially when you're used to being the line leader. It's hard to say, you don't need what I'm thinking right now, because this is your thinking, not my thinking. I could have thought of a million ways we could have extended what they were working on.
Mhm.
Oh, let me run to the closet. I have this. This would be great. Let's have that. I didn't need to. They had it under control. And I had to just stop
Mhm.
and let them do it. And
Because
be
it's
more,
not, yeah, we're always telling teachers, think about how you could extend their learning. So I'm so glad you said that, because when we go to the closet and get something and we bring it, it might disrupt what was happening.
exactly. Now, when you see the bump in the road, it's starting to disconnect. Or they ask you, if they invite you in, of course you're coming in.
Mhm.
But then you say, hey, I have an idea of something I might have that could maybe work for this. And then you present it, and then hands off again. Let them see what they can do with it.
And
I
that
think
is a beautiful dance, right? It's knowing
yes.
when to change partners or when to bring something new in without interfering in what's already happening. When you can extend, I would do that with Play-Doh a lot. So I just put Play-Doh on the table, just Play-Doh. But behind them on the art shelf were popsicles and scissors and cookie cutters and rolling pins. But at 3.5 and even at 4, they might not go back there to get something, but I would notice when they were starting to lose interest, and without saying anything, I'd just go get a basket of popsicle sticks and stick them on the table, and they would go, oh, and they go again. But it's knowing when,
right,
and not using it, because sometimes I think teachers say, oh, I need to extend this, but they haven't observed enough to recognize that what they might be doing is interfering, not extending.
exactly.
Right?
And I think if we can, if we can take these years prior to kindergarten, because that's the, what we're working with at our particular program, and let them have those opportunities to feel their self-reliance. And hopefully as they enter the world of kindergarten forward, they have that's sort of how their brain is set up to, even in the tougher times, to rely on being able to maybe link back to those beginnings. So I think that's just where we're at with this, and I would love to see it change, but until then, this is what I can do. So
that's exactly right. And as we begin to think about, the people are hearing about the 21st century learning model, which is not what we're doing in public schools, right? And when I work with graduate students who are primary, secondary, and middle school teachers, what they're saying is, and what they're saying I love, I just captured as much as I can. What they're saying is technology is interfering with children's ability to problem solve and critically think. All they have to do is Google it. Technology is taking up too much of our day, and we're not really doing any projects. We're just doing drudgery work. And so they're beginning to say, whoa, that pendulum, it has swung one direction way too much. And we need to center ourselves and not come back over here again. But we seem to do these little swings back and forth all the time. Ooh, it's great. Well, oh my God, Jennie, this has been amazing.
Well, I have enjoyed my morning. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, don't go anywhere. I'm going to close this out, but I have a question about your daughter's paper.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
So to learn more about IPA-USA and to see more Porch Play Chats, be sure to go to our website at IPA-USA.org. And until next time, keep on playing.